Welcome to Business Talk, presented in collaboration with the University of Rio Grande and the Ohio State University South Centers, from the heart of southeastern Ohio at the University of Rio Grande TV studio. Our goals are simple: promote the University of Rio Grande and the Ohio State University South Centers, as well as advocate local small business and their support organizations. More importantly, promote southeastern Ohio as a wonderful place to live, explore, and learn. There are many different ways you can find us. The University of Rio Grande Cable Access Channel 17, live online at blogtalkradio.com, and on YouTube if you are unable to catch our show live. Introducing our co-hosts, Jason Winters, Mike Thompson, Patrick Dengel. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hey, welcome back to our show. Today it's sort of a unique show. We have one of our previous guest hosts that includes Peter Masters from England, and then we have our very first individual who is an archer. He comes from Jackson, Ohio. He owns BOWJUNKIE. Did I say that right? BOWJUNKIE Archery. It's a business that's been around for 2 years. So I want to welcome Brian, and I want to welcome back Peter. Peter comes back to us from Florida.
Thank you, Patrick.
And it's really great. You know, we're going to talk a little bit about archery and bow hunting, different things. And I think the listening audience knows that I'm not allowed to have sharp objects. I'm not allowed to have guns. And I guess now I'm not allowed to have bow and arrows.
I would hope not, Pat.
But it is really interesting about bow hunting. And, you know, I remember the early days. And we were talking about that, you know, with Peter, Robin Hood. You know, I remember the early days and things of that nature. But I want to welcome you, Brian, to our show. Perhaps you can tell a little bit about yourself and a little bit about yourself, how you got involved in the business.
Thank you. Good to be here on the show. And my name's Brian Smith. I'm from Jackson, Ohio. I'm born and raised there all my life. Been married and I got 3 kids. We got been pretty much established as a business for the last 2 years. I've been involved in archery since I was the early age of 14. And just kind of got out of the concept of competitive archery more than got into a shop retail setting, because I like to work on bows, I like to tune bows, I like to make them shoot better. So the next step would be just if I'm not going to be able to competition shoot no more, was to go ahead and just help everybody else shoot better. With the kids getting older and the whole aspect of them, it just took a lot of time more that we couldn't put into the competition career. So we went ahead and started a shop, and that's what we've been doing for the last couple of years.
I think that's fantastic. You said something about the kids getting older. Isn't it interesting how we stay young, but our children get older?
Yeah, that is very interesting.
Yeah,
I never aged.
Just like Alzheimer's creeps in our early 15s.
Alzheimer's? What's that again?
Your early 15s?
Of course.
Since Peter is the oldest of all of us, etc., it's good having you back. Just take a minute and sort of refresh us what you did there during the summer.
I've been working down at a company called CIT Aerospace. It's based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It's about half an hour north of Miami. And basically I was working as a marketing research intern for their marketing department. And what they are is they're an aircraft lessor. So I was in the commercial air department, and they have a lot of their portfolio is Airbus and Boeing primarily, and a few Embraers and Bombardier jets in there as well. But they have customers across the globe, offices in Ireland, offices in Singapore. So it's a very global organisation with an awful lot of aircraft on order, aircraft that have currently got leased out, and at the moment it's a very growing industry. I think Southeast Asia is the biggest growing area at the moment, or region, should I say. And I think there'll be a lot of development of these type of companies, of aircraft lessors. They'll start popping up there'll be more and more popping up in Asia. And I know at the moment the biggest location for them and congregation is actually Dublin, Ireland. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops over the next couple of years.
It really sounds like it. You know, whether you are located in England, whether you're located in the United States or wherever, hunting has always been an important aspect. And bow and arrow, archery, is one of those necessary things to help us eat, probably in the evening and things of that nature. How did you get involved in hunting?
At an early age, I was always, my uncle always hunted. My father never did hunt, and I always wanted to go with him, and he took me hunting a lot. It kind of really sparked the interest of hunting in general. When we started to bow hunt to expand your opportunities of deer season, and you really got into the whole shooting aspect, and then you wanted to get better, so you get into the competition side of archery, and as a competition shoot, you always get more and more to better. You always want to be better. You always want to do better, and that's really what the whole, for me, took into the whole aspect of tuning your bows, because when I was in the young version of working on your bows, you don't have a whole lot of money. You got to learn to work on your own equipment, and that's where you really get good at tuning bows and working on stuff. And that really helped when you go to start a shop. You're able to work on everybody's equipment because you know what it takes. And the draw a blank. I'm sorry.
What do you do to tune a bow? Are you going for a C or an F key, or what are you doing?
Actually, that's a funny story because there's a lot of guys that'll tune their strings, but that's not the way I do it. You got to set a bow up properly, because when you start from a bow, you got to have the bow and you got to have the strings. You got to have the string set right to the factory specs. You got to have the arrow rest set up to be able to line up correctly to shoot, and you got to have the proper arrows to shoot out of the bow. With all that kind of works in a harmony, once you get it tuned correctly, to be able to launch the arrow properly.
So are you going for tension or thickness or length?
You're going for pretty much perfect arrow flight, like an NFL player throwing a football, a perfect spiral, and not like a lame duck like I throw a football and it kind of wobbles in air. You don't want that.
Okay, so you can't just take the bow and without shooting it, tune it. Is it trial and error kind of a thing?
It's kind of a trial and error. A lot of it is knowledge, like I was saying before, knowing how to set things up properly. Lining up the arrow rest, lining up the nock height, and setting the bow up will get you really close. And then it also takes some shooting to make sure that it is flying properly. And it does take a little bit of skill to know, every different style of bow, every different style of arrow rest, because there's multiple styles across the board. It's like cars. I mean, you get different models, different shapes, different sizes, the whole aspect. So it does take a lot.
Well, Brian, I have several questions. First of all, let's start by, where's your shop?
My shop is in Dixon Run Road in Jackson, Ohio. It's out by the truck stop off the 4-lane. It's a 756. So it's actually at my house currently. We're working on building a own separate building that it can be housed in.
Will it be there at your house, just
Yes.
in a separate building?
Yes, it will be close, but it's a separate building.
Do you have any type of office hours there?
We run evening office hours because I do run a regular job during the day. So I usually run about 6:30 to 9:30 in the evenings, and depends. Weekends is by appointment. If you give me a call, I can always try to accommodate anybody what they need, and try to get everybody fixed up whenever they need it.
Now, I'm not an archer, but I do know there's different types of bows. You have
Yes.
traditional bow, you have compound bows, you have cross bows. Why don't you tell
And
us
you
a
have
little bit
Christmas
about
bows, don't you?
He puts bows in his hair.
and ties? Is that what you're saying? But only, never mind, we won't go there.
Well, I've learned from being associated with hunting people that the amount of things and secret weapons that you can buy is maybe even larger than the golf industry. There's just so many things you can do to hunt better.
This is a correct statement, because everybody thinks they're going to buy that magical piece of equipment that's going to make them shoot better. and sometimes it works and sometimes it don't. The best thing for any bow hunter to start is to make sure that their equipment is set up correctly by somebody that knows what they're doing, and two, if they still seem to be having problems, going into the coaching aspect of making sure you are doing what you need to do. Just because you put a normal driver in a NASCAR car don't mean you're going to run as fast as the guys that are trained to drive it. So
That sounds like a dangerous combination. Can you imagine Pat in a NASCAR?
that would be the idea a lot of people take when they buy a bow and they go, well, it's the fastest bow on the market, I want to learn how to shoot and shoot it. Don't really work out. You really got to start with learning and setting up properly, because your draw length and draw weights come into play with that. If your draw length's not right, you could draw it way past your ear and you might be, looking for a plastic surgeon to reattach that thing. Or if your draw weight's too much, you're going to be too much holding weight, or you're drawing too much weight and you're going to fatigue out and you're not going to be able to shoot the bow properly, and you're going to develop bad habits in the beginning, which if it's all set up correctly, are pretty much eliminated. So that's where the best part is to actually go to someone that knows what they're doing and set everything up, including you and the bow, to function the best that it possibly can.
So do you specialize in any one type of bow, or do you take care of all different types?
I can take care of about any bow across the industry. I've worked on probably about every bow out there, put strings and cables on, setting them up and working on them to do what they need to do. I work with a lot of arrow companies too, to make sure that whenever somebody gets a bow set up, that they get the correct arrows to make sure they shoot like they need to. So
How about crossbows?
do have some crossbows I work on. I do put strings and cables on crossbows. Strings and cables are my big specialty. Custom built colors, the whole tuning a bow, setting it back up to the factory specs, and making it shoot the best. And that's usually people come in, I ain't had bow strings on this thing in 15 years. Usually a new set of strings and cables and a good gone through, and the bows will back to shooting like they did 15 years ago. Most people just don't think about that. It's like wearing the tires out in your car. You got to have new tires every once in a while, and the car seems to drive better, and that's where we're not putting Pat in a NASCAR. But if we do, we're going to put good tires on there for him.
And a good set of brakes.
Exactly.
Hey, I can get it up to 70 miles an hour without any trouble.
Okay. So strings do stretch.
Yes, strings are basically a material that over time will start stretching and will start breaking. They dry rot over a certain period of time. Most of the newer materials are designed to last a lot longer. They will do stretch after being shot, probably a couple, 3 years, and it'll be time. We recommend every 2 years putting new strings and cables on just to keep everything fresh and good. But they do wear out over time.
So do you sell a full line of arrows as well?
We do anywhere from the competition arrows to the hunting arrows. I've got different manufacturers that I deal with, and like I said, we can micro tune you down to whatever draw weight you're shooting, to how heavy an arrow. Do you want to shoot IBO legal, or you want a heavy hunting arrow? You can pretty much specialize it down to whatever we really need, whatever your specifications are.
So what all can you hunt with a bow and arrow?
In the state of Ohio, I do not believe there's any limitations on game. You can hunt rabbits, you can deer, turkeys, squirrels, a little bit of everything. There's no limitations on.
Birds?
Yes.
And
As long as it's legal by the ODNR, you can hunt ducks and geese with a bow.
Okay, and then what I didn't know before I made a video about it was you can hunt fish with a bow. I don't know if you would call it hunting fish, but
it doesn't require a hunting license, but it does require a fishing license.
Mm-hmm.
And you can bow fish. It is a big sport. It's an up-and-coming big sport. We've done a couple of bow fishing tournaments this year, and we plan on doing another one soon. But yes, it is a whole different aspect in itself, because the light reflection on the water creates you to shoot high most of the time, because the fish is never where the fish looks like the fish
you're
is.
supposed to shoot higher, or you're supposed
Lower.
to shoot low? Okay.
The fish always looks higher than what it really is. When you hit the water, the light bends,
Right.
and the fish looks off.
Yeah, I was never real sure about that, but
Yep. You always have to shoot like way lower than you think, and and it's
Do they do that in Southern Ohio?
Mm-hmm. We do it right here.
Night fishing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
You know, Mike, I was mentioning earlier, back in my high school years, way back when.
Way back when. Before the turn of the century.
I used to do a lot of rabbit hunting and squirrel hunting, especially with my wife's family. They loved it. They loved to rabbit hunt. And there was a member of the family that was a bow hunter, and he would rabbit hunt with his bow. And
That just seems impossible.
yeah, well, it seemed impossible until I watched it done. It was amazing. I mean, I'm lucky to be able to hit a moving rabbit with a shotgun.
Yeah.
And he could nail it with a blunt tip. Now, they don't use a point, but they use a blunt tip that obviously kills a rabbit. But it's amazing how he can hit a small little rabbit. There's some really good shots out there.
Mm-hmm. I've a couple claims to fame on my own. Is we have a little competition when we have some buddies come up from Arkansas, and we try to find new and better ways to one up the next guy. It's just a friendly competition. The last time they was up, a buddy of mine set a flashlight on a target at 10 o'clock at night and turned it on and turned all the other lights off, and that's all you had to shoot at was a flashlight in the dark at 100 yards. And it took me a few shots, but I finally did hit it, and I still have the flashlight with an arrow stuck through it in my shop. But that is definitely a claim to fame, because that is tough.
Do you use all the lighted tips?
We use the lighted knobs, and it definitely makes it extremely fun, because you get to watch them fly at 100 yards, and an arrow will easily arc 28 to 30 feet. In the middle, somewhere around 50 yards out, it'll be at its peak, and it'll be arcing like 28 to 30 feet high. So you literally watch the arrow drop into the target.
So what's the difficulty? Is it not being able to see your own sights, or what?
You can see your own sights. The difficulty is trying to hit a 2-inch circle at 100 yards with a bow.
Yeah, I can see that.
Most of the shots you normally take are inside of 50 yards. And the most standard hunting practices are inside of 30. So the long-range shooting is more of a practice and having fun and seeing if you can actually do it. Bows have been pushing the limits of distance for years. And there's guys out there shooting 200-300 yards with bows now, just practicing to see what they'll do.
But you wouldn't take them hunting and shoot at a deer at 100 yards.
Out west, they do.
Oh,
They have shot in the 100-yard range. Where they have the wide open spaces and it's harder to get closer to animals like we do in the state of Ohio, where you've got a piece of woods and you can probably hide behind a tree. Out there it's wide open, and they have to take the 70, 80, 90-yard shots. Don't claim it's ethical. There's guys that can do it all day long, and I commend them for it, but in my own personal practice, I try to stay in that 30, 35-yard range.
So how far will an arrow travel?
The last time I checked, if you set it up correctly, you can get in the 300 to 400 yard range pretty easy. And that's holding it at a 45-degree angle and just letting it fly. I'm not real sure if I didn't know that question was coming. I looked up the actual world record specs.
The only reason I brought that up, and I'm not trying to throw you off, but you mentioned you were hunting birds.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for my days of hunting, we didn't take a shot unless we knew what was beyond the animal, so that if we missed, it was going in the ground or it was going in a hillside. It wasn't going to travel. One thing that we always did is, we never really fired in the air because we're afraid bullets carry.
right.
Yes.
So
we shoot in long fields. I personally don't shoot geese and ducks with a bow, but there's guys that do, and they usually get big open fields where when they shoot, the arrow will fly out. And they shoot a flu type arrow that's got a real hard helical feather on it, and it don't really fly that far. It's good for about 35, 40 yards, and then it's just like a big parachute in the back of it. Opens up, slows the arrow down, it falls out of the sky inside of 75 yards. So they're usually, if they're going to be shooting in the air with birds, they're specialized arrows. They'll even allow you to not shoot the neighbor's house or the neighbor's dog or whatever, so that you can stay out of trouble.
yeah, or the neighbor's goats.
Jason happens to have 50 to 75 kids, goats.
Less now. We're downsizing.
Some of them went to college.
Some of them will.
So, have you ever thought about opening like an archery range?
I have several archery ranges that are in Jackson County and
Okay.
surrounding. It's never really been a part of my plan. I'm more specialized in the working and helping people shoot better. I'm a big people person, and I like the idea of archery and making everybody the best archer they can, and specialize in really fine-tuning equipment and making sure that people, needs every advantage they can get when they get in chasing a white-tailed deer or a turkey. They're just tough critters to chase down and shoot with a deer or shoot with a bow. So giving them all the advantage they can get, that's what I'm there for.
So I'm curious, financially, what does it take to get a good bow?
To get a good bow set up, shooting, not saying top of the line and not saying bottom of the line, in the middle of roads, you're going to be about $1,000. Top of the line bows, you're going to be pushing $2,000. Bottom of the line entry level, you're probably still going to be in the $700-800 range.
So if we wanted to set Pat up so he could learn how to hunt, all right, and we got to put him in a Chevrolet because he can't handle the NASCAR.
Is that a compound?
Yeah, those are compounds, yes. Although along any aspect of archery, the longbows and recurves, you can get them cheap too. I've seen custom built in lathe recurves that go for $2,000. So if we want to put Pat in a Chevrolet so that he can manage to not hurt anybody, I would say we would be putting him in the $700-800 range to get it fully set up and be able to hunt efficiently, and probably about another $800 in coaching so that he can hit the target.
Because
probably be good.
He's probably really interesting. He just got this new river home, and him and Wanda spend some time down on the river, and I'm sure he would love to try bow fishing.
Well, the one of the things that we're trying to nurture at the home is hummingbirds, and we would never hunt those hummingbirds.
Just want to make sure.
But we have seen some strange animals down there, so you never know.
You never know.
If someone could actually hit a hummingbird, that would be a fantastic shot.
There's guys that exhibition shooters that shoots aspirins out of the air, and I'm sure you'll YouTube that as soon as you get out of here.
Shoots what out of the air?
Aspirins.
Oh. Okay.
Byron Ferguson is one of them. There's Frank Addington. He's another one. He lives not too far from here, down toward Huntington. They like to shoot aspirins out of the air. And one of his jokes, I actually seen this one time. We was at a Byron Ferguson exhibition shoot, and he was talking about hitting a quarter out of the air. He was going to hit a quarter, and he said that's about the size of a hummingbird. And the game warden stood up and goes, "You're not allowed to shoot hummingbirds." And he pretty much, was being illegal about it. And he said, "Why? They taste just like spotted owls." The crowd got it and was pretty funny, and the game warden really didn't like it, but it was kind of a funny story. But yeah, don't shoot at hummingbirds or spotted owls, Pat.
Or spotted owls.
I usually go to the pharmacy to get my aspirins. I don't have to hunt them.
You never know when times have changed, and you're going to have to really hunt down, aspirins.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of hunting season, when is hunting season, and is it the same as guns?
Gun season is a lot shorter than actual bow season. Bow season, they give you from the last part of September through January. And then whenever gun season is usually a week long, and they usually put a couple of bonus days in there, and muzzleloader season's a couple of weeks long. So you max out at about 4 months on bow season, and you really have about 2 to 3 weeks of gun season, and the whole. And that's because bow hunting takes a lot more preparation, I think, than what gun hunters put in. And most of your gun hunters, they pretty much just go hunt in the woods. Where bow seasons, you're watching the rut, hunting the rut to try to shoot a big buck. They watch stand placement and food sources, and they put more into it. It takes a lot harder to shoot a deer with a bow than it does a gun. You got to get them so much closer. Like I said, my effective range on a bow is 35 yards. My gun, I'll shoot it out to 150, and my muzzleloader, I can shoot out to 200. So it's one of those where you really got to work harder at trying to get the deer closer and really outwit him. And deer's nose is really hard to beat.
And I always like the idea that with a bow, it doesn't make a lot of sound. So if you missed one shot, they might look around and go, "What was that?" And you might get another shot. You shoot with a gun, they're gone.
They pretty much figured out they need to leave pretty quick. And that's the thing that a big misconception is with archery is the deer suffers more, and they don't. It's been pretty much a deer properly shot with a bow and arrow and a good sharp broadhead and quality will be less than a minute before it'll expire, and but with a gun, it's burning, cauterizing. Sometimes I've seen them run with a good shot. They'll run for a lot more than they will with a bow, and that's where the misconception of archery is. It really can be a quick, effective, humane kill if done properly.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of arrows do you? Are there, or not arrows, but the
broadheads?
Tips?
yeah, the
Tips.
tips, the tips.
And like everything else, there's a big wide variety of different tips too. You've got cut-on contact broadheads, and then you got the ones with a metal tip that would come to the blades, and you have those that open on impact, and they are all very good for actual hunting applications, and you should pick some quality ones. Don't really recommend the cheap Walmart $12 because, as they say, the business end of an arrow is at the broadhead, and that's the part where you really wouldn't want to skimp on. To be able to, it could be the difference between an animal suffering a little bit longer or a good quick humane kill, and actually recovering an animal versus not finding one. And that's the importance we stress is people want to go cheap, and sometimes it's warranted, but there's times where you really need to spend a few extra dollars. If you're going to be playing a game of life and death, so to speak, you really want to make sure that you do your part. And it is, some of us serious bow hunters do take that fairly serious.
So the tips, how do you fasten them on the shaft of the?
The end of an arrow has a aluminum insert that goes in it that has threads in it, so when it will screw onto the end of an arrow. And the back part's got the knock on it, which actually attaches to the bowstring, and it has fletchings so that it helps it spin as it goes through the air to spiral like a football to get the maximum stability for long-range distance shooting and being able to shoot help the broadhead stabilize and shoot the best that they can out to longer distances.
So what sort of prices would we be looking at for the high-end arrows?
High-end arrows they usually run in the $80 to $90 to $100 range for a dozen, fletched up and ready to shoot. The broadheads can venture anywhere from $25 to $50 for 3, and they're usually replaceable blades, so that if you shoot them into targets, and you can pull the old blades off and make sure they're flying good, and pull the old blades off, put new fresh ones on before you go hunting, and make sure everything is flying like it needs to.
So why would you go hunting for? I suppose you would hunt because you would like to eat some of whatever you killed. Why don't you just go to the store and pick up some meat where no animals were harmed?
Very good question. It would be a
because the ones at Walmart were not harmed.
Yeah.
Well, we know hamburgers come in tubes. Okay.
Yeah. Part of it is the all natural meat idea of it is, when you go to Walmart and you pick up a package of hamburger where nothing was harmed, you don't know exactly what's all in there. Antibiotics, or who handled it, or who was it dropped on the floor. With deer meat, it's raised natural. It's through the woods. It's really good meat, and actually it'll come out cheaper. We average about 45 to 55 pounds of meat out of every deer, and with your tags you get about $24 in that, not counting all your equipment, because you can't do that because it would cost way too much money. So with the actual tag prices, you come out a little bit ahead by the time you have your butcher fees, or if you do it yourself. And if you do it yourself, you're cutting all the meat up, you're handling it, you know what it's been through, and for a lot of people it's peace of mind. Mm-hmm. And it's a good way to relax. I mean, it's been many days where you're just frustrated at life or your kids or your work, and you can go sit in a tree stand and get out in the quiet, and a lot of times you just go out there and you hang your bow in a tree and you kick back and you take a nap and you wake up and you look around and you watch the birds and you watch the squirrels, and it's a relaxing.
Yeah, that's one thing. I don't know if many people know hunting, but it's a lot of waiting. You don't just go out in the forest and chase something down and shoot it and come back out of the forest.
Not like on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of times you'll go out and you'll come back empty-handed.
And
you'll be sitting around all day from sun up to sundown.
I don't really necessarily sit all day. I usually pick my 3 to 4 hour windows that I'm able to get out. But it's very relaxing. And even if you're just out there, it's a lot of. I do a lot of time reading and when I need to catch up on studies or whatnot. I do a lot of reading and because it's nice and quiet. I catch up on a lot of texting too. But if you can turn the phone off and leave it for a little bit. And that's whoever invented the gloves that you can text through. That's been my best friend with hunting, because you're like, shoot, you get a text and you got to pull your glove off and put your glove back on, and immediately they text again, so you're pulling your glove back off. So the guy that invented those gloves where you can text through, he's definitely my friend. So.
And you sell those in your shop?
I will have him a new supply coming this fall.
One of the things that I understand, you manufacture parts of a bow, and that's primarily the string. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing we started offering in the beginning was custom built strings and cables. You can bring your bow in and go, I want this color strings and cables, and I have those colors on hand, and I'll actually sit down and build your strings and cables to your bow, to your specifications, what colors you want, and be able to tune the bow out. And it kind of gives that custom feel. A lot of guys will just want different colors because, they buy a bow and it's got standard colors on it, and they don't want that. They want their colors. There's guys who are very particular, even though they say their wives are. There's a lot of guys that have to accessorize, and colors is a big thing with us.
Okay, one more question, and then we'll start wrapping it up. How many women do you find that come into the shop looking for services?
It has increased a lot. I think a lot of the movie industry has done that with all the different movies coming out with archery. The Catching Fire, Hunger Games, and all those have really sparked the interest in the archery industry again. And there's a lot of women actually picking up. My wife personally hunts. She competitive archery shoots, and we've done a lot of it. And you see the women.
Who's better?
Come on, Pat. That's a loaded question. We'll let that go for another day.
I have been beat by my wife before.
I think all of us have.
Now,
Okay.
But I still have more work titles.
I know the industry sells pink handguns. Do they sell pink bows?
Yes. Pink bows have been big on the market for a while. And I have pink string material.
Well, Brian, it's been a very interesting show. We certainly appreciate you coming on today, and I know we're out of time. I know we could go on and on, but we really do need to wrap this up. One last thing. Please tell all the listeners how they can get in contact with you.
I carry a phone with me pretty much, and if I can't answer it, I don't. So leave a message. I will definitely return calls at 740-577-5799.
That's 577
5799.
5799.
And, like I said, I run a normal job during the day, so I'm pretty much out of commission between 8 and 5, but I do return calls in the evenings, and I'm usually there and trying to field calls and talk to people and do whatever I can to help out.
Do you have a web presence?
I do not have a website, but I do have a Facebook page, and it's facebook.com/BOWJUNKIE Archery with the B, the J, and the A all capitalized.
BOWJUNKIE Archery.
Brian, I want to thank you very much for coming on. I've learned a lot, prior to our interview. We have a chance to talk a great deal on some interesting facts, and I think if other individuals ever had a chance to talk with you, I think they would find you very knowledgeable.
Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Jason.
I'm Peter.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Brian.
Thank you for listening.